Hello again. Sometimes those who wish to criticise this channel, or me, will level the accusation that I am a pseudo-intellectual, or even no kind of intellectual at all. They are quite right, of course. I am not an intellectual. I'm an ordinary person of average intelligence, and I'm certainly not an expert in most of the things which I talk about here. It takes more than pronouncing one's words clearly and not dropping H's to make somebody an intellectual, a point which my wife, who knows me better than most, has made more than once in the past. She says that I have the mentality and soul of an East End barrow boy, and that all the elocution lessons which I had as a child cannot change this. I fear that she is right. There is, however, a plus side to this. I may not be a famous brain box, but on the other hand, I'm certainly not a fool either. I can spot a wrong and a mile off, and I'm usually able to detect falsehoods and evasions, especially by those in authority over me. I know when people are trying to soft soap me or pull the wool over my eyes. These abilities have nothing to do with education. They're simply skills which many ordinary working people in this country have been possessed of for generations. One of my grandfathers was a blacksmith and the other a bus driver and a drayman, and both had infallible instincts for people trying to trick them. Neither had any use, incidentally, for politicians of any description. I mention this little part of my personal history for a reason, and it is this. It is very often the case that when the government or some expert or other announces a new scheme, whether it's a law being planned or something to do with climate change or viruses or restructuring the National Health Service, it is often the case that the man in the street can see what is wrong with the proposal before any expert. This is because the normal person who is no expert in the field can see at a glance the implications of some new proposal in a way that the academic who thinks of little else other than his chosen subject cannot. Ordinary people spot at a glance how some reform of the social security benefit system will leave it open to abuse, for instance, or the deeper implications of some new piece of town planning or traffic control. The experts only appear to notice these things later, long after the man in the street has already dismissed the new idea as unworkable for various reasons. I have seen this happen time and again, that there is a wisdom in ordinary people that sometimes appears wholly lacking in academics and intellectuals. There is a difference between brain power and common sense, you see. So it is that those who denounce me for being a man of little intellect are almost certainly right about my not being an expert and not overburdened on the IQ front. I freely admit it. Does this mean, though, that the things which I say are stupid or easily refuted? That is rather a different matter. Let me give an example of what I'm talking about, and I do not claim any particular credit for this because I'm aware that many other ordinary and unremarkable individuals spotted exactly the same thing the other day, many of them probably before I did. On May the 9th, NHS England announced a wonderful plan to save the National Health Service and stop it collapsing completely. It entailed pharmacies being able to prescribe antibiotics for various things such as sore throats and coughs and so on, instead of needing a doctor to do it. In the description to this video, I give a link to the BBC report of this bold initiative. Let me quote from the report. Sir Stephen Powers, the National Medical Director for NHS England, told the BBC's Today programme, "We know this works. We've seen it work in local schemes and similar schemes are operating in Scotland and Wales. We also know pharmacy wants to do it." The National Medical Director for NHS England says it is a good idea and that pharmacies want to do it. Of course they do, you idiot. There's a lot of money in it for them. Nowhere in that report is there any hint at all that this is a thoroughly atrocious idea and will lead to disastrous consequences. Something which an awful lot of ordinary people spotted at once, but the National Medical Director of NHS England apparently missed. What's wrong with the idea, boys and girls? Now, one of the many things in which I have no expertise whatsoever is microbiology. And yet, before I'd finished reading that piece on the BBC website, I could see at once where it was going to go wrong and lead to dreadful trouble. The following day, I released a video, to which I give a link in the description to this video. I said, as for allowing the local chemist to prescribe antibiotics and so on, this is an appalling notion. One of the reasons that we only let doctors prescribe antibiotics is because if people take them too widely, then we will see the emergence of antibiotic-resistant strains of bacteria. This is already happening. If you allow antibiotics on demand, then this process will accelerate. Fairly obvious, I thought, although it seemed to escape the notice of the medical director of NHS England. In the Sunday Telegraph yesterday, we see this headline. It says, pharmacist prescriptions may fuel rise in superbugs. We read things such as, allowing pharmacists to prescribe drugs for millions of patients could fuel a wave of superbugs, experts fear. And then there's a lot of quotations from experts in antimicrobial resistance and how they fear that this will lead to people taking antibiotics too widely and the emergence of more antibiotic-resistant bacteria. This is as neat an illustration as one could wish of the way in which experts, even professors and medical directors of the National Health Service, honestly fail to see what is as plain as a pikestaff to the proverbial man on the Clapham omnibus. So the next time anybody watching this channel wants to find a wounding criticism of me, denouncing me as not being an intellectual is probably not going to do the trick. I think they're going to have to hunt harder for some insult that will really strike home.